Welcome to The Innovators. Each week, we're serving up real talk with badass women who are dishing out the truth. No fluff and no BS, just raw, honest stories and lessons to inspire and empower the next generation of trailblazing women. We're here to keep it real and pay it forward. I'm your humble host, Cynthia Nelson, three-time entrepreneur, Forbes contributor, investor, and advisor. Today, we're talking to another big badass on the show. Adrienne Garland, CEO of She Leads Media. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Cynthia. I'm so happy to be here.
We're sweltering here in New York and the East Coast, but that's okay. We're going to make it cool for the listeners. I think that's going to be fun. Um, you know, I was looking at your background and we had spoken before on your pod as well, but I wanted to really hear your backstory. How did you get to being the CEO of She Leads Media? Like, where'd you come from?
Sure.
It's never a straight line, right?
No, it is a winding way. So I guess I can start with I grew up in Westchester County, went to college like a lot of my friends, and I majored in economics because in high school and middle school I was always very um, just I had a talent for math, which I loved. It was something that was a little rare, I think, for a girl to, really love numbers and love logic. And so I took that. And I was very interested in just market dynamics, supply and demand, all of that. So I've got a little bit of, or a lot of that. And I minored in English because I'm a Libra
Mm,
and I like to balance things out. I'm super creative and I really love reading and writing. And so I sort of put those two things together early on in my, college years. Coming out of college, all I wanted to do was make a lot of money. That's all I wanted to do. So I got into finance
yeah.
and I really loved it. I worked at such an incredible company in Old Greenwich, Connecticut called Soundview Financial Group. And I just loved it. There, I worked with equity research analysts and I was a research assistant. And it really it struck something within me that said, I want to pursue the world of finance.
Mhm.
And that didn't happen in the exact way that I wanted it to.
Yeah.
I thought that I could just become a financial analyst if I, worked hard. But I realized at that point in my career that finance didn't necessarily have an open door for women. And that really struck me because I never even considered that I was different from anybody at all. I just thought
Right.
I'm a hard worker, I'm a smart person. Uh, and so that sort of set me on this journey that I think has led me to where She Leads Media is today. So I decided that I needed to go and pursue my MBA in finance so that I could be a financial analyst like all of these incredible people that I worked for at Soundview. And I left Soundview during the time that I started my MBA at NYU. I graduated from Stern, which is a top finance
Yep.
MBA program. And I was working in investment banking in the 1990s. And the company that I worked for was doing some shady things that I got clued into, and I realized that I didn't want to be in this whole finance world. There was a lot of things going on, which I won't get into, but I decided to quit that job and just finish my MBA because I was going part-time, just finish it full-time. And when I made that decision, I also made the decision to switch to marketing.
Huh?
I just didn't want to be in the world of finance with it wasn't just about numbers, it was about so much more. And it was during that time that I realized that gosh, things aren't equal. So I really had a Pollyanna mindset
Yeah.
And so I pursued working in media entertainment and technology using both my sort of numbers background and finance and marketing. And I got into the world of planning. So direct marketing, planning, really, figuring out all different testing strategies and what type of different mail pieces got different type of results and doing budgeting and all of that good stuff. And I worked at Cablevision in Long Island for a number of years. Left there, went to PR Newswire, where I learned all about the world of PR and media and the
Yeah.
influence that the media has on everything.
Yep.
And at that time, PR Newswire was sort of being disintermediated by the internet.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if they realized that right away.
Right.
And so I ended up moving on from there, working at PricewaterhouseCoopers, where uh, it just did not work out in the way that I had wanted it to. And that's when I started She Leads Media. It wasn't called that then, but I was working with women entrepreneurs. I was noticing a pattern of just bumping up against so many different barriers. And I was complaining about that one day to a friend of mine who was in the events industry. And she said, "Hey, why don't we put on a conference and bring in women that are super successful, that have started companies, and people like us can learn from them?" And
Right.
that's sort of where the She Leads live conferences was born. And now it's 11 years later.
I mean, it's amazing. It's one of kind of the premier women's entrepreneurship conferences around. And the fact that it has been around so long, you know, well, I've heard it's a transformative kind of event for female entrepreneurs. How do you keep the content fresh every year?
Oh my God, that's almost like the easy part. So there are, and there are
Yeah.
so many fabulous, talented,
Yeah.
brilliant women in the entrepreneurial space.
Yeah.
And it's sort of easy to identify who they are and reach out to them, or they have an incredible, PR agents and publicists that reach out to me because at a certain point, I stopped doing the outreach
Yeah.
and the flood of
Yeah.
inquiries is overwhelming. And I think that that's a testament to the longevity
Yeah.
of the She Leads Media brand. So I get to actually, sort through some
Pick.
really interesting people.
That's awesome. You've been in these leadership roles in a lot of different companies. I love the fact that you started in math. Definitely would not have been my thing. I think I got an F in algebra in high school. Had to retake it.
Oh no.
So definitely wasn't my, but you're also an educator, right? At NYU
Yes.
and at Rice. As you're seeing these young women coming through the programs, what's kind of the biggest mindset shift that they need to start leading instead of just participating?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that is incredibly encouraging is that, while there's still apprehension and the thing that I hear so much from the undergrads, male, female, is that they're looking for stability. So even though they're in my entrepreneurship class, they
Yeah,
want to get a job
yeah,
to quote unquote be stable. And like it's the biggest fallacy, right? Because
yeah,
if you can
completely.
count on yourself,
Yeah, that's the biggest gift you can give yourself, and the biggest, you got to take a risk on yourself.
exactly. So I try to instill that type of a mindset because that is ultimately across the board what it comes down to, mindset and belief in yourself, and then being able to do the work, meaning instead of falling in love with the idea that you have in your head that's definitely informed by something, get outside of yourself and put yourself in your ideal client's shoes, walk
Mhm.
their walk so that you can truly understand what their pains are and then build a business for them. And that, minor thing is the most challenging thing to do.
Yeah. And the most game changing when you do it right.
Yes.
Because they
Yes.
do tend to fall in love, and the baby sometimes is ugly
Yes.
and it's broken and it does, you think it's great, but if you've never really had to use it as the consumer, whoever that consumer is, or B2B, whoever that company is, and you don't walk in their shoes and don't listen to them and don't constantly ask them questions on how you can improve it, you just have another product out there that's not going to make it.
Exactly. And I think the thing that gets in women's ways, young, at any really stage along the journey is that we don't even though there are many examples of hugely successful women entrepreneurs, we don't idolize
Yeah,
the women entrepreneurs as much as we do the tech bros.
yeah, completely.
So there's not a lot of good role models, I
Yeah,
think, for women to say, oh, she built a business like this. I can do that too. They feel very much like I've got to maybe keep it small, reduce the risk, make sure that I'm making the money. And so there's not a lot of taking chances that are the big chances that some of the even the very, young undergrads who are in their 20s, they have these really big ideas and they're confident that they can just go get money. And guess
yeah,
what? They
that's,
can.
yeah, yeah,
The guys can.
yeah, the guys can.
Yeah.
Right on the back of a napkin, they can go get money.
Yeah.
Women completely different. Even on the female, you know, venture side, you've seen, we've all seen, and there aren't enough women in power in partnership positions to make a difference, to make a substantive difference, because it's still 2% of
Right.
everything gets funded women. And if you go to minority women, women of color, it's abysmal. It's less than 1%.
Yeah. I
So
actually was just speaking to somebody yesterday who has a very successful business and she is self-funded. She's actually an NYU SPS grad in real
uh,
estate finance. And she did the commencement speech at the SBS in 2024. But she said, and I didn't know this statistic, it's 0.07% of BIPOC women
yeah,
get funding.
yeah.
That's disgusting.
And yet they're the ones who are actually starting more and more businesses.
Yes.
That's the growth of entrepreneurship. It's female and it's brown and black and
Yep.
it's BIPOC completely, and LGBTQ, and it's completely like it's upside down. And I don't know
Yes.
how to turn the boat the other way. I mean, I guess just everybody pushing in the same direction, but it feels like they're still missing the link. They're not able to grab the next ring because the ring's not even there. It's not even in the room.
Yeah. And I think the network part of it too is
Yeah,
something that is missing. So there's not a lot of,
right.
hey, let's do this deal on the golf course, or I know
Yeah,
a person who
totally.
knows a person. And
Yeah.
so I was actually having such a fascinating conversation yesterday about you're at this point in your business where you're growing and you've passed that $1 million mark and you are so focused on your business and the operations and the people that you don't spend a lot of time looking from the outside in.
Yeah. Yeah,
And there's
and
a multitude of reasons why.
bringing other people in outside of your circle,
Yes.
and even knowing where to go. I think, you know, we talked about this before, but you've described kind of the community education amplification are the pillars of She Leads.
Mm,
I feel like that's such a, those just three things: community, education, amplification. We should all be doing all three of those things all the time. And I think some of us do several of them well, but not always the amplification or
mm,
not always the community side. Like
mm.
there isn't a place to go.
No.
How do you grow that organically within the organization of She Leads? Like what are the things that you're doing to help with all three of those pillars, or which one maybe are you struggling with or you see entrepreneurs struggling with? I'd love to hear that.
Yeah. I mean, I think each one of those pillars has its own challenges. I think everybody is dying for community and they really want that connection and people who understand them and especially women, right? We're talking about, or
Yeah.
I talk mostly about women.
Yeah.
And because we are pulled in so many different directions, as much as we want community, something in our those other aspects of our lives suffer if we participate in community in the way that we want to. So we say, well, what's more important? What can I sort of maybe brush aside? And that piece often becomes community. And then one of the things that I've struggled with from the very beginning, and even when we started the conference, my partner at the time, Laura, and I said, we don't want this conference to be like every other conference because it's out there. So
Yeah.
what can we do that's different? And
Right.
that same issue, I think, exists with community. Like, what is it really? Is it an online space where you're doing posts and webinars? And, it's like, oh, it's a burden. And so I've never wanted to create something for women entrepreneurs that feels like a burden,
Right.
that is like, this is a waste of my time.
One more
And
thing to do.
one more thing to add to my
Laundry list.
ever-growing
Yeah.
to-do list.
Yeah.
So I haven't cracked the code on that at all. And I think that doing these conferences once a year, I know everybody's so busy, but the people that understand that when you do show up live with other people, that magic happens,
Yeah.
those are the ones that it makes a difference. And you don't necessarily have to stay with the She Leads Media community for the whole entire year because what happens at the conference is organically
Right.
these relationships form and then
Yeah.
everybody splits off and does their own thing
Right.
and then they come back together or new people come into the fold
Right.
every year. And then, I'll flip over to amplification and visibility. That's
Yeah.
layered.
Oh, yeah. Completely nuanced.
Ugh,
Yeah. How do you get the attention? What's the
ugh,
right attention? Is the
exactly.
algorithm actually working? Hello, LinkedIn. Are you hearing us? I've seen some interesting things happening on that platform
Mm,
where posts should be getting a lot more. They're not. I feel like they're hidden. People aren't seeing things. And I've heard it from other women as well,
yeah,
mostly talking about women's issues,
yeah,
women's, and it's like, okay, well, the algorithm is written by
right.
someone's. So maybe the people writing the algorithm are putting a spin on it, and then those other stories are getting more play. And so these other stories are not getting the play. And now with AI, it just
Yes.
continues to kind of pile on itself.
Yeah. It's insidious. And it feels so many days like all of the, progress
Yeah.
that we've made has sort of evaporated
Yeah.
overnight, especially with anything that smells like DEI.
Oh, yeah.
It's like no, we can't go there.
Yeah.
So how do you talk about the real issues that are affecting 90% of our, population? Well, 51% of the women population, and then
Yeah.
anybody that's quote unquote other. I don't even
Yeah.
know what that percentage is. I'm saying 90%.
Right.
But how do you talk about these issues? And it's literally whitewashing
Yeah.
your speech.
Yeah. Hiding it and whitewashing it.
Yeah. And
100%.
then knowing that in order for you to actually get your message heard or to get visibility for yourself, that you have to play that game
Yeah.
because technology is not allowing those messages to get through.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, if the message was opposite and written by someone different, it would get a completely different spin
Yeah.
and a lot more traction
Yes.
and distribution, which is so important on the platforms. I mean, all of them, doesn't matter
Yeah.
what platform.
No.
Yeah, it's concerning. I almost feel like there's a whole new social platform that needs to be built. Maybe She Leads
Agreed.
Media will build it.
Maybe. You
Maybe
never know.
you never.
There's stuff cooking.
Oh, okay.
There's
More
stuff
to.
cooking.
Okay, so we'll have to have a episode two follow up for
Yes.
this for sure.
Yes.
Um, one of the things I know you're a big believer in whole person leadership, kind of balancing business, wellness, friendships, family. We kind of talked about it a little bit on the whole community side. How do you
Mhm.
personally integrate those in your life? What's your secret?
Well,
Or your
I,
or tips and tricks, maybe? Maybe that's
yeah.
secret.
Yeah, because I definitely do not get it right. Sometimes I do. Often I don't. And years of also not getting it right. And I do think it's just about priorities in your life. And I teach this so much. This is like a fundamental aspect that I teach in my entrepreneurship class, specifically at NYU. Rice is a little different. But I make sure that everybody understands who they are. First and foremost, we go in and we go deep before we talk about business at all. And students are like, is this therapy?
Yeah.
And I think that it probably is, not formal, and I do not have any type of training. But when you understand yourself deeply, you can then create a life that is going to lead to success, whatever that definition of success is for you. So the like how do you do all of this stuff, integrate health, and it's sort of like if you can keep checking back in with yourself, how do I feel? Is this moving me toward my goal or away from it? How is whatever I'm choosing to do? And I have choices. We're so lucky that we
Yes.
are,
Yes.
so
Yes.
privileged.
Yes.
My choices, they can help me or they can harm me.
Mhm.
And to just be conscious of that fact is the inner guidance that's necessary for everybody. And it changes. And I think that's the thing as I've grown up, I guess, that I realize it's sort of like stop living your life based on what others expect of you
Or want.
or want. And it's not always bad,
Right.
right? Like
Right.
people who love you don't want to
Yes.
see you suffer.
Yes.
And your ego too,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So
Totally.
understanding that and some of the ways that you just react and behave and talk, that is all from, I think, a place of trying to keep us in that place of safety, but
Mhm.
safety is not how we grow.
Yeah. And safety is definitely not entrepreneurship.
No, not at all.
They're not even the same. You look up entrepreneur, safety doesn't really come in anywhere there. It's like
No.
not, it's missing completely.
So it's like, how do you regulate your nervous system
Right.
in order to be an entrepreneur? And,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like, try it all,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like, that's my
Right.
tip. Like, just like they say with exercise,
Right.
like baseline, get moving,
Right.
right?
Right.
Entrepreneurship too, baseline, get
Get
moving.
moving. Yeah. Start.
But do you have to run in order to get in shape? No. Not if you hate it.
Yeah.
Maybe you can dance.
Yeah. And it's a marathon, not a
It is
sprint.
a marathon. Yeah.
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 It's
That's
not for
good
the,
stuff.
it's, I was interviewing somebody a couple, 3 or 4 months ago whose dad now passed away, but his dad was an entrepreneur for many years in the Garmento district, here in New York, and built businesses, lost them, built them again. He said, don't wait to do the things you love until you're older. If you love skiing, always make time to ski. If you love
Yeah.
playing the guitar and you want to be in a band, always make time to play guitar and be in a band throughout your career, not just at the end when you think you're going to have time to do it. Do
Yeah.
it throughout so that you always have an outlet for something else that you love, even when
Mm,
things aren't going well. You have something else that you love that you've built in to your schedule, like running, like eating right, like whatever it happens to be, it becomes a habit. And then that habit is lifelong.
mm.
So you
That's
always have something,
amazing.
a great piece of advice, right?
Oh, that's perfect advice, right?
Right?
Never, ne and that because that is sort of when you think about human beings,
Yeah.
that's our soul.
Yeah.
And when we start to ignore that, that's where things go
Wrong.
awry.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
That's when stuff that goes off the rails.
Yeah,
Burnout, et cetera,
exactly.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right?
And I think it's so difficult for women because societal messaging, programming, like it puts so much pressure on us to literally do it all, and not just for us, but for every single other person
Yeah.
around us.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Completely.
exhausting.
Yeah. So when do you have time to play the guitar and be in a band? You don't. You
Right,
put all that stuff goes away.
right. And
All
I
the
think
things.
Gen Z, I think, is very good at realizing that you really shouldn't put that guitar away. And as much as people say, they're overprivileged or,
Yeah.
I don't lazy, I don't know. They're trying to pull the pendulum back to a place of humanity. And
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
I want to be
We can learn
happy
from
when
them.
I want to be happy when I'm doing the things I'm doing, even though I'm working.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
good.
good, it's good. I mean, there's something in between, right? We have
Yes.
gone so far the other way, I think, that we
Yes.
do need to come back to, I talked to you about that. I would never do the things I did before, not go on the vacations, not do this stuff because I was so busy at work, so busy growing the company. That's just your ego. That's just bullshit. Your ego talking
Mm,
100%. And you get in
yeah.
the habit. It's like a habit that you get in that habit of doing it. So it becomes natural versus a habit of like, no, I'm going to go lay on a beach during the spring break or during holiday. I'm going to go see friends or family. No, I need to decompress. I don't need to be on my computer. Things are not, we're not curing cancer here, people. Like
Right.
we're just building companies. We're
Yeah.
not, we're not doing the other stuff. We're not scientists, neuroscientists. If we were, okay, different. But
Sure.
you've
But
gotta
even they
take
take a
break.
break.
They take breaks too. Yeah, they have to because it's too
They
intense otherwise.
have to. Exactly.
Yeah, they have to.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
One final question I always ask: what piece of advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Girl.
Girl, I love the start of that.
Oh gosh, go to FIT. Like that, that seriously, I I wanted to do both. I wanted to be logical and this incredible, economist, and I wanted to be a potter or a landscape designer or some type of a designer. And I thought, let me do this first and then I'll do that after. And I never did the and that after. I think my business has been my creation.
Yes,
So at least I've, tried
in
to
a different
incorporate
way.
in a
Yes,
different way.
yeah,
But keep writing, keep writing poetry, keep playing the flute, keep, drawing and doodling and doing all of that stuff. Don't put that aside because that is Adrienne, 20-year-old, who you are.
yeah, yeah,
And be you
yeah,
always.
yeah. Great piece of advice. Thank you so much for being on the show. I know the audience is really going to love it. You are a badass. Love
Thank
having
you.
you on. Survive the heat. But how do
Yes.
people get a hold of you if they want to go to She Leads Media at the conference? They want to work with you. What's your deal?
Thank you so much. This has been so much fun. Time has flown.
I know.
Oh my gosh. So anybody can go to the website, which is sheleadsmedia.com, and then on all of the socials, we're She Leads Media. If anybody wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, despite
Yeah.
what's going on, it's Adrienne Garland, over on LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to connect with people. And I will mention that our next live conference is happening in New York City on November 7th. And then we have a VIP evening. It's happening at a multi-million dollar penthouse property in New York City.
Very nice.
So that is happening on the evening of November 6th.
Awesome. All right. We want to go to that. Great. Thank you so much for being on the show and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, Cynthia. I appreciate it.